Hello beer tubers and welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of hoppets, finishing off this pumpkin ale odyssey with two beers that I'm excited about trying. From Southern Tier Brewing Company, we've got Pumking and Warlock. So these are the final beers that I picked up, pumpkin ales that I picked up on J&B Craft Drinks, a Dutch web shop. You can check them out. I'll put a link for the shop. It's not a sponsored episode or anything. I just want to give them a shout out because they have a great selection of beer and they get a lot of awesome hype, haze, and whatnot as well. So I think they do small private imports because they get a lot of stuff I've not seen anyone else get. So yeah, really cool to be trying some Southern Tier again. Southern Tier was a brewery that I had near and dear to my heart. They've been on my top 10 numerous times years ago. Southern Tier Chocolate, for example, it blew my mind. Imperial Stout with chocolate. Yeah, I've reviewed a lot of their beers. Chocolate was one of my favorites, I think, back then. And I also had an affinity for pumpkin, but pumpkin couldn't get in Denmark. It was not distributed here, so I think I actually traded for it. I'm just looking at the description right now just to see if it says thanks to someone. Yeah, I got it from Tim, so who sent it over, and I baked pumpkin pie and we paired it with pumpkin pie. And I've actually baked pumpkin pie, but it's gone because I shared it with family, so now I can't pair it with the beers. But I have pumpkin pie fresh in my memory. But that, I don't know if you can see it that well on here, but back then, pumpkin was in a bomber with a printed label with a very similar looking pumpkin head on the label. But then they changed everything up. They're doing the smaller 12-ounce bottle format now instead of bombers. How big a bomber? 16 ounce? Was it more? I can't remember. But big bombers. No one really does those bottles anymore. But they changed to this. But I think it also said half-liter bottles on their site. But since, I think since 2018, I haven't tried any Southern Tier beer. That was the last time I tried something, which was their Monstrosus, a barrel-aged beer. And prior to that, and that was 5 years ago, and prior to that, it was 4 years since I tried a Southern Tier beer, the last one being their Krampus. Other than that, it's not really been in Europe for a very long time. They used to have regular distribution here. We got the Pumking and Warlock to try. Pumpkin being one they've done for years, very famous, one of the more famous pumpkin ales in the States. And Warlock, which is a newer edition, which is a similar idea, but the base beer is an Imperial Stout instead. Yeah, I'd still love to try some of the highest rated stuff like Good Gourd from Cigar City or Schlafly's Pumpkin Ale because those are people's favorite. Even it would be also really fun to try something like Bottle Logics, where it's like crazily imperialized and barrel aged, done like a bit more like a hype beer, and that would be fun to see, like pumpkin ale as a hype style, like a really rich and decadent beer that's got pumpkins and spices. That'd be fun. But yeah, they have a fun little description here. They have a new variety as well this year from Southern Tier, which is caramel pumpkin, which apparently is very bad, at least according to Darwin from Darwin's Beer Reviews. But yeah, so it's got 2-row pale malts, Munich and Crystal 60, Columbus or CTC for hop additions, and then the fermentation is ale yeast and 2 varieties of hops, it says, and then they got 2 varieties of malts. I don't know why they say that as well on there, but it's also made with pumpkin and spices. And to them, the aroma is cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, allspice, vanilla, and buttery pie crust. Pumpkin pie in a glass, 30 IBUs. Looking forward to this. Revisiting pumpkin. This is the highest rated pumpkin ale for me, I think, on the channel if I look back. It's one of the only ones I've rated really high, but I loved it, and I think it was the first time I also really tried a pumpkin ale was Pumking, and I didn't really try anything that came close back in the day. But let's see how it's holding up these days, if it's still any good. It's a lightly hazy, golden copper hue, frothy looking white head on there. Also the strongest, actually, of all the pumpkin ales that I got to try. Well, let's see the aroma on Pumking. How many years? I think was it 8 years or 9 years ago? I reviewed Pumpkin 12 years ago. Time flies. Okay, well, let's check Pumpkin out again, but for the first time in 12 years. Okay. Oh, yeah, that smells really nice. It really smells like freshly baked pie. That pie crust aroma can't be from malts alone. They must use some kind of flavoring in there or something. But I remember this in the past. It almost reminds me of like some of the flavors you get from Omnipur beers, like their cheesecake stouts. It's like this caramelly graham cracker crusty aroma. So much pumpkin, pumpkin or just pie crust. And there is definitely like warm spice, cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg. It's not like vibrant and intense. I think the most intense aromatic is that pumpkin pie crust. And also a little bit of vanilla. This smells pretty nice. Let's try it. Cheers. Okay, surprisingly well balanced. I remember it being much more like in your face. But it's also like, I think it could have more spice. And I think it's a very fine line between people in these kind of beers. Some want more spice than this, some want less. And it really varies from person to person. This one has lots of the pie crust flavor with some of the pumpkin pie filling, but not maybe loads of, pumpkin pie kind of filling and spice. A little bit of a gourdy flavor, but it's not a lot. It's the big thing is just like that buttery, vanilla-y as well pie crust. Oh, there I got the warm spice, but actually the balance of spice on there is very much like a pumpkin pie, because the pumpkin pie I just baked the other day, it was warm pumpkin spice, and you got that with the pumpkin filling, but it was not like as abrasive as in like the left-hand pumpkin spice latte. And I think like the pumpkin spice lattes are more intense on pumpkin spice than an actual pumpkin pie. This is for sure something that where you think this is pumpkin pie in a glass. I think this is a really popular beer around this season in New York, and I think a lot of people love to get this because of the whole nostalgic factor of pumpkin pie and how well it nails the flavor. But I think I would like it even more with a more robust base. The malts and everything are just like lightly biscuity bready. It's like the whole thing that shines is pie crust, and it must be some kind of flavor addition. But let's try and jump over to Warlock. So this will be fun. A stout as a pumpkin ale, and also an 8.6% stout, meaning it's probably not going to be that rich with the whole, like the world of stout these days is all about crazy, crazy richness. And 8.6% indicates it's going to be maybe similar in body to pumpkin. But let's check it out. So it pours a black color in the glass. There is reddish hues in the glass as well, and a beige tan looking head. Let's check out the aroma on Warlock. Very similar, but I feel like the spices shine a bit more in this. This is like all pie crust. Here I'm getting loads of ginger. Yeah, ginger and nutmeg really shine. There's also like cinnamon and allspice type nuances. And it does have a little bit of that buttery pie crust thing as well, but I feel like maybe it's just because it's more suited this kind of style, where it really jumps out at you. Here it's like, yeah, it's more of the warm spices. It almost smells like a bit like someone did like a gingerbread spice kind of stout or something like that as well. You could confuse it with that if you had it blind. But yeah, and then some toasty, like roasty nuances on there. I think they used like de-bittered roasted barley on it. Let's see here. They used 2-row pale Munich malt, Crystal 60, and de-bittered black malt and chocolate malt. And they say pumpkin pie laced with coffee and dark chocolate. Smooth velvety mouthfeel with a slightly sweeter finish than pumpkin. Interesting. Let's try it. Cheers. It doesn't necessarily feel sweeter. I think pumpkin is better. I mean, this is pretty classic, like American stout, and then we've got some adjuncts in there. But in the realm of big stouts these days, like I think a lot of people would trash this who drink hype, but I can appreciate it for sure. It's more of old school roasty bitter stout that's silky, not like vulgar and rich, and that's also nice. I think to some extent we're also getting a bit out of hand with the crazy massive stouts. Or it's just like crude sweet oil. It has pie crust flavor as well, and I think it's more prominent on the palate, on the flavor. It's pretty much the exact same flavors to this, just with a burnt, roasty, charred, malty flavor. And I can see a bit of like almost like burnt coffee or like really hard roasted espresso coffee, and like char, almost like woody, slightly ashy, malty roasty flavor, which is interesting because it's de-bittered. I think Warlock, like I would like a bit more body to it, maybe a bit more stout characteristics and more chocolate and just more like of everything a bit. But it's also hard to do like a really rich and or velvety luxurious kind of stout when it's only 8.6%. Most stouts in that ballpark end up being like this. They're like drier, more roasty. Not everything, but it's just like it's more like a drier roasty stout, and that's not bad either. I mean, it's nice. I think both are good beers, but I'm not like floored by them either. But I for sure think Pumpkin is the best. I'm debating here. Like, I kind of want to give it a 90, but I also kind of don't because I don't feel like I'm not loving it hard. You know, I think it's a nice beer and it's nice to drink, but it's not like something where I'm thinking, wow, this is a fantastic pumpkin ale. I'd love to see someone just try to rethink this style a bit and like make it a bit more modern instead of like these. These are still nice beers, but like it'd be fun to see like a smaller craft brewer's like, hey, let's do a modernized pumpkin ale and make it more like a bit more rich, a bit more decadent. And I think that would be really cool. And then maybe like barrel aged. I guess I'd imagine that's what Bottle Logic. Yeah, Bottle Logic, what they're doing with theirs. But yeah, for sure, I think Pumpkin is the winner of Pumpkin and Warlock. But in terms of grades, I think I'll stick to the 90. I mean, this is pretty much what I'd expect from a pumpkin ale. And Warlock, again, blindfold, I could have thought that this would be like a gingerbread stout or something like that, but it's because of the same spices, right? So that one, 87, something like that. 86. Not half bad, but nothing amazing. So I just sipped a bit on the Pumpkin and Warlock off camera, and it just, as it warmed, it got more and more artificial pumpkin. It really started to get more of that like fake flavoring, fake pie crust flavoring. Almost like if you've ever had like Yankee candles, it was almost like an autumn scented pumpkin pie scented Yankee candle, or like just like smelling like scented candles as it warmed in the glass, and it got a bit more artificial. So I actually think the best was left hand, not pumpkin. So I think I'm the left hand nitro pumpkin spiced latte. I've yet to try the best pumpkin ales, but as I said previously, I'd love to see a pumpkin ale done in a more modernized package, more rich and more decadent. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna go like, I think I still enjoyed it, but it was just like on the edge with the artificial kind of flavor. So I'm thinking like around the 88, 87 or something like that. It was still a nice beer, but I still think, yeah, the winner was the left hand of all these. But again, I thought I liked pumpkin ale more than I did as well, because I didn't score more than 1/90, but I don't know. There was just something nostalgic about trying these and whatnot. And I've always had an affinity to want to try these pumpkin ales because back in the day there was a lot of them that people talk highly of. But with craft beer moving and things, changing, it's maybe a style that's not moved too much. And basically, it's also one of the only like quintessential American styles. Like you got cream ale, you got California Common, and of course the modernized interpretations of styles like West Coast IPA and hazy IPA and like pastry style, like a lot of these, but it's like quite like classic. Like before all that, there was cream ale, California Common, American Pale Ale, IPA, and pumpkin ale. Really, pumpkin ale is quite American. So, but it'd been fun to see some brewers play around with it. So yeah, the winner was pumpkin spice latte from Left Hand. That was surprisingly great with a nitro. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and cheers, and see you guys in the next one.